Alrighty, y'all. Good morning and welcome again to another amazing United Partners for Human Services workshop. My name is Justin Fitzpatrick. I am happy to serve as the membership and communications coordinator here at United Partners for Human Services. And we are honored and humbled to have Vicki Bradley, the news director at WTXL ABC Tallahassee, here with us today to present Telling Your Story, where we will talk through different ways that your stories cannot go or will not go untold. And she'll share ways of how you can build relationships with local journalists, the best ways to get your story covered, and what you need to do to make sure you are prepared to tell the best story ever. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the microphone over to our amazing presenter, Vicki Bradley.
Good morning, Justin. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for having me. Thank you all for hopping on to hear me speak. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. All right, here we go. So telling your story, I think, is really important. I want you guys to have a little bit more background about me. Some of you already know, which is fantastic. So I've been in journalism 17 years. So I put the locations I've worked in because I think it's really important that you know that what I'm telling you today isn't just like, oh, only applies to Tallahassee. It applies to any newsroom in most places and cities in the country that you will work in or have worked in or may even want to pitch a story to. Also, just a little bit more about me is that I'm pretty active in nonprofits. I sit on a couple of boards, some leadership programs. And for me, the reason why I wanted to do this is because I felt it was really important that people knew how to tell their story, but also that I use my career and actually be able to help kind of give back to organizations that may not have the support or just may not have the knowledge. I am also a person, I teach a class remotely, and I'm all about participation. So that is also what I hope to do today. So there will be times when I ask questions, starting now. So what makes a good news story? You can unmute yourself, just throw it out there. We're not judging. I'm just curious. When you think of a news story, what do you think makes a good news story? Anyone?
Relatability. How it affects my life.
I heard my life. Can you repeat that?
How it affects me personally in my life.
Absolutely. What else?
Relatability.
Yeah, it has to be relatable, right? We can't just tell stories because we like a story. We have to tell stories that also are relatable, that people care about. What else? When you think about what makes a good news story?
One that pulls on your heartstrings.
Yes, positivity. You want to have some kind of emotion. So when we're looking at what makes a news story, these are things that we are considering. These are things that we are thinking about. I work for a company, EW Scripts. Our company is really big in research. So I'm going to go through kind of the why behind why we make decisions and why other stations typically make decisions. And then we'll get into more of the what you can be doing to help get your story told, or things to avoid doing to prevent an organization from maybe not being interested in your news story. All right, so what do people want? The research, we work with this company called Maggot, and the research they did was in our market and markets across the country, so cities across the country. People said they want stories of positivity. How are people making a difference in other people's lives? More than likely, if you're on this call, you are doing something that's making a difference in someone else's life. People care about that. People want to know about the local economy. So what is happening around us? We have an economic development reporter who goes out and he finds out what's happening, what's coming up, what's closing, and we typically do stories about that. People want to know about the things happening in their communities. So what are the big things to do? Where does stuff just happen just past weekend? That is something we covered heavily because that was a big thing to do. And people have expressed, we want to know about what's happening in our communities. So when we are looking at what makes a news story, these are some of the things that we are either going after, like actually going out and searching for ourselves, so enterprising, or things that when they come through, they pique our interest because we're like, that is what people told us they want. So when you're thinking about why a news organization covers a story, we all have some kind of guide of why. This is my why. This is part of our why. And just so we all are clear, there are going to be things that happen that we have to cover because they're just big stories. So crime. No, I don't want to do a lot of crime stories, but if crime is an issue, then we need to talk about it. We need to do news stories on it. If something big has happened politically, we need to do something with it. We need to make people aware of it. We need to dive deeper into it. So you'll see those stories obviously on your local news as well. All right, building relationships. How many people, and I'm gonna try to see if I can see my my view. How many people have relationships in a media organization that you're like, okay. Now, how did you build that relationship for anyone who said that they had a relationship with someone in media? And again, you can unmute yourself. No one? All right.
Oh,
Oh.
At first, just reaching out to them and talking with them.
Absolutely. Sometimes, and we'll go through that, building the relationship can be really easy as reaching out, introducing yourself, and having a conversation. And Betty, I believe that was you speaking. Is that a relationship that has gotten better over the years? I'm assuming you had like the initial relationship. Is that person your go-to person? Like, how is that relationship going?
Yes, I did. At first I just reached out, and then it's going good, because now they initiate contact with me, and say, hey, what's going on? So yeah.
And that is exactly what you want to, right? You want people to reach out to you, excuse me. And you want people to ask what's going on. I see chat, I can't click chat. So Justin, you're probably looking at chat, but yeah, building relationships is going to be super important and super key. So let's dive into what that looks like. If I can click ahead. All right. Research the outlets in your market or beyond that you would like to build relationships with. I know there are some organizations that do not just work with the local organizations. They also work with statewide organizations, and they also have things that sometimes are going on outside of Florida, and they work across the country with other organizations. You need to establish, one, who are the news outlets in your market? I will tell you who ours are. I'm sure you all know my station, WTXL, the CBS station, WCTV, the Democrat, WFSU, I just want to say something. Any other outlets that you're like, that is my go-to that you want to share? I kind of covered the big ones for locally. But those are pretty much kind of some of your top outlets, right? There are other newspapers and outlets that do things as well. But when I'm thinking, especially in the television space, I'm thinking of us, I'm thinking of our competition, I'm thinking of WFSU. So know who is in the market. Super, super important when it comes to building relationships, because if you don't know who the television stations are, you don't even know who to look up to try to get a phone number to find a person. Now, you know who the people are. Well, excuse me, you know who the stations are, you know who the papers are, you know who the organizations are. You need to find out who's making the decisions. Really important. Here, I am kind of the final decision maker. There are other people below me that help make decisions. I have a team of managers. So sometimes they will come to me because something is brought to them and say, hey, I think this is a good idea, a good story. I want to go after that. And we talk it through and I'm like, okay, green light. Or, hey, maybe let's take another look, or let's circle back to that later. But you should know who those people are. Really important, if nothing else, just for your knowledge. You might not be in contact with them ever, but just knowing who the decision makers are. Something else really important with that is that you can connect. So like Betty said, she just reached out to somebody and they have built that relationship. Send an email. Send a LinkedIn message, introduce yourself, talk about your organization. You can see that wall to my right, so your left, right. You can see that wall. This wall is like different notes and things that I've gotten from people. Some are from people I know, some are from people that I've never actually met in person, but people who have reached out, love it. People who have thanked us for doing stuff, love it. But I mean, contact is really important. So figure out how you can reach out. Offer up an in-person meeting, Maybe you just open a new facility and you would love for someone in that organization to come check it out. Or maybe you just like to have them grab coffee, right? Coffee chats are really simple. I've done a few. Sometimes it's just a quick 30, 45 minutes getting to know somebody. Again, inviting them to your organization can be key, or inviting them to an event that your organization is hosting, and then requesting to come to their offices. I had someone reach out and they were like, hey, because I think maybe I said previously, like, if you want to connect, let's connect. And they were like, hey, we want to come to the station. And I'm like, okay, cool. So we set up a time and a date and we figured it out. And we talked about, what they were trying to accomplish in a news perspective. And I thought that was a great introduction / we actually then kind of decided that we were going to do a story with them. So these are all things to think about. These are not the only ways to build relationships, but I feel like these are some smaller, simpler ways to help start building those relationships when it comes to making contact. Does anybody, we're going to do questions later, but I also know I speak fast and I also don't have like a bunch of sound or anything to break me up. So I will say, did anyone have any questions or input from this building relationships slide? All right, I'll move on. When it comes to the relationships, great. You know the person, you know who you should be reaching out to, you know the stories that they are interested in. Now, the biggest thing for you is going to be, how do you sell your story? In our market, our business, we call it story pitches. My reporters every day are required to have 3 story pitches. Something about story pitches here is that they cannot be events. So if LaShawn sent me an event and it went to the entire newsroom, that's great. Reporter cannot then send managers a story pitch that is the event that LaShawn sent her. Our reporters are expected to go out and find stories. That's really important. We are journalists. We should be digging. We should be looking. So when you can come up with a nice pitch, it helps them and it also helps you at the same time. So pitching your story, again, figure out what outlets are interested in covering. I kind of did a high level. Here's some of the things that we would cover, but the things that we would cover are likely things that you're going to get covered at the competition or you're going to get covered in the paper because they are things that just research driven. Positivity, economic development, people helping other people in good ways. Figure out what the outlet is interested in. If you had a story that was very political, you probably wouldn't send it to me. You may send it to one of the other media outlets that highly focus on political news. That makes sense because more than likely they're going to be interested and pick that up. And plus, you want to make sure you are reaching your audience. So you really need to be intentional. Who are you trying to reach with this news story? If you have something that is going on for a specific group of people, typically you would probably reach out to those other organizations and say, hey, help me get the word out. Kind of the same concept with media outlets. Know what they are interested in sharing, and then know whether or not your story is something that kind of falls within their interests. Learn how outlets like to receive information. Super important. We all get a lot of emails every day. I'm sure you all get them. And I'm sure sometimes you wake up, sometimes I can wake up from, we'll say 10:30 to 6 o'clock, and I'll have 100 new emails because I work for a kind of large company. So we just get a lot of stuff. But I say that to say that some people don't necessarily like getting information via email. So some people overlook things too because they're not looking for them. You should know who you should be contacting with a pitch. Most news organizations or outlets have an organization may have a media person. Newsrooms typically have what we call an assignment desk or someone who's like handling assignments. Those are typically the people you want to reach out to. So you don't know a journalist, and maybe you're not interested in necessarily knowing a journalist, but you know that at times you're going to come up with news releases and you want those to go out to organizations. Find out who is the person you should be sending that information to. If you do not know, honestly, you can call the newsroom, the newspaper, whoever, and say, hey, if I have a news release, who should I be sending that information to? And they would tell you. Is there an online form? So we have ABC 27, it's called News Tips, but there's a form on our website where you can click it and you fill out information. That information then becomes an email that sends out to certain groups of people in the newsroom. Really simple. Find out if they like to get information via form. Is there someone, again, you should call directly? Maybe email is just not a thing. The website doesn't have a form. Is there someone you should just pick up the phone and call or send a text message? All really important things to know to make sure that your story pitch does not get overlooked. So really key, if you're like, I don't know who to reach out to, I don't know who to call, that's what you need to do. That's part of the research, is figuring out who those people are at your local outlets. And again, in the other organization that you're trying to reach. When it comes to pitching your story too, there's a part two, really important part two, that people don't always understand or sometimes are really caught off guard by it. When you're sending an email, when you're posting on Facebook, when you're calling someone, the number one thing is don't delay the pitch. Give outlets as much notice about an event or news conference as possible. We experience that. I know the other organizations experience that. And here's what happens sometimes. So today is April 25th, and there's an event happening at 8:30 this morning, and we got the news release at 6 a.m. this morning. Probably gonna be very little I can do with that. A couple of things to keep in mind, unless it is truly breaking news where we just have to blow up everyone's day, right? What's happening is that typically, especially in this market, we are smaller news organizations. We like to plan ahead. So my daily editorial meeting is at 9:30. I like to kind of have our day laid out before 9:30, which means that if you're sending me an event at 6 a.m. for 8:30, a couple of things. I may not have the staffing in the building to cover it. I'm more than likely not going to see it until probably 6:30, 7 o'clock. Then now I have to find a reporter or someone, if I don't have enough staff in the building, to go out and cover it. When you look at all those factors, it's just not beneficial at times for us to cover news items like that. If it is breaking news, again, we need to respond. If we have a really bad accident or something, it closes down multiple lanes and it's really impacting traffic, then yeah, we're gonna have to blow up our own mornings and go and send someone out and then figure out how to make it up later in the day. But when it comes to covering an event, or when it comes to something that maybe is of interest, but not highly impactful, that's kind of what we're weighing when we have to make these decisions. So if you know today, again, April 25th, that you have an event that's happening next week, you're probably behind on sending out that news release. But guess what? Today is a great day to send it because at least it is almost a week out. So just always think about giving organizations as much time as possible. I don't think there's a perfect amount of weeks or days, but I would definitely say day before, not enough time. Morning of, not enough time. Sometimes we can make it happen, but a lot of times it's a scheduling shuffle that we are just not in a position to make. When you're sending those releases, right? So you've gotten the release done, you think, and you're about to send it out, you should leave little questions unanswered. We get releases sometimes that are very vague. They are like 2 to 3 sentences. I barely know what's going on. I just know that I should be somewhere at 10 o'clock. But why? If we have to spend a ton of time chasing someone down, because that's the other thing too, if we have to spend a ton of time making a lot of calls to get additional information, especially again, if it's not a breaking news story, if it's not a super impactful story, chances are we might not be able to cover that story because we don't have time or resources to do the additional work, especially when it could have just been provided. So make sure you're giving as much information as possible. It's really easy. Who's going to be there? Why is this happening? I love to know, especially when we're covering community-centered stories, who's going to be impacted by this? Like, who is our audience? Who cares about this? Who will benefit from this? That is really good information. And then be specific again on what you're hoping to tell. What is the purpose of this event? What is the purpose of this news conference? What are we getting out of it? What are you hoping that people get from it? As a news organizations, a lot of times, yes, we go into a situation knowing what the story should be and what we're hoping the story is. But it's really nice too for you all when you're framing your own story to be very specific on, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it, and this is why we feel it's important. So, always think about your why. Always make sure that you're including your why. Including your why too is just actually another great selling point when it comes to, again, catching my interest, catching the interest of another news outlet. So we figured out who to send the pitch to. We have sent out that email. We have posted on social media. Before you do anything else, and honestly, before you hit post, before you hit send, please be ready to respond to requests. A lot of times we'll get information and we're like, okay, that is something we're interested in. And the first thing that happens is no one is ready to talk on camera. I work in television. I need people on camera. No one knows who can speak on camera, or you don't know where the person is that would typically speak on camera, or there's not a backup person for the person who normally speaks on camera because they're busy and they are tied up for the day. If you're sending that information out, have a plan. Know who is going to be that point person. Know who you need to call. I'm sure if Betty sent that information, Betty knows who can interview, or Betty knows who is the best point of contact once that has gone out. These things are just really important because, one, they increase the likelihood your story will get covered. We had a story last week. It was an idea from another organization, and we wanted to pull in a different organization to kind of figure out what we could do with it. And we just spent so much time spinning our wheels trying to track someone down. And it's not necessarily the fault of anyone, right? Because sometimes we're calling you an hour before we need an interview, and that's just the nature of the business too, asking for interviews. But, having that plan in place and knowing that if your main person is out, you have a backup person, knowing that if you send this email out today, your event is not until the end of next month, and today you don't have anyone who could speak, maybe today is not the day to send out that email. Or something else important, some people will send out emails and they will say media availability, and they will put the hours and times and who will be available to do an interview. I typically see that with law enforcement, but I don't think it's a bad thing for other organizations to do when it comes to just making sure that people know how they can cover your story, or people aren't trying to chase you down to get interviews for a story. Really, really important. The other thing too is be a resource. We are in the day and age, we all have phones. I have two, right? If there's something that's happening that you think is important that maybe we just can't get to, you know what? Send me a picture, send me some video, send me more information. Maybe my web team can get something on the website. You send me video, maybe we can give you some credit and put the video on air. Really important. I've seen a lot more organizations do this now too. They'll say, hey, if you can't come, we'll send out video later, or we'll send out a Dropbox. And I think that's just really important to know that sometimes we just can't cover the story, but there are ways that you can still get coverage, even if it just lives on our digital platforms. Digital platforms get more traffic most of the time than on-air broadcasts, right? And it lives there forever. So think about that. We can't show up, but what can you give us? Maybe I still love to tell that story, but again, I don't have the resources, or something has happened and I've had to pivot crews. So think about that too. If you have an event that's happening and you want news coverage, how can you help news organizations? Is there a dedicated person on your team that can take pictures and put them together and send an email? Maybe you are the dedicated person because you don't have a team and you do everything. And that's completely understandable, because I understand that is just the nature sometimes of the world that you work in. You do all the things. So just think about it. Maybe you can get a couple of quick pictures. Maybe you can get a video. Some cell phones quality are really great, that we've gotten people giving like actual soundbite interviews on cell phones from reporters in the field. Maybe you're really good on your phone and you can do the same thing. Just start thinking about that too. And when you're sending out your news releases, and if you know it's something that you think that maybe it won't be a huge thing that a lot of people can come to, offer people, like put in that news release, we will send content by request. Really simple, saying like, hey, if you can't come, but you want things, let us know, and we'll be more than happy to send you stuff. That is kind of a way you help yourself, and make sure that your story maybe doesn't go untold because a news crew couldn't show up to be there to cover it. Now, there's a lot of power in pitches, and we get a lot of emails, like I said before. The email the slide you're seeing is a copy of an email that we got at the end of last year. And when I read it, I was like, oh, we're doing this story. Adoption, Christmas, emotion. But I call this the power of the pitch because they sent this email, right? The email has all the details in it. I think I even cut out some of the information because it wasn't necessary for this. But I mean, I even have a quote in there from someone already. I know what is happening. And because I know what's happening, I decided that we should send a news crew here. And this is when we're about to see whether or not I shared my audio. So can't wait. So if you can't hear Justin, just yell and I'll stop the share and share again.
The biggest takeaway from all of this is these kids need love. And the love they need is the love we could provide, especially right around Christmas where.
Now at 6, it has been a day full of love, joy, and tears at the Leon County Courthouse. Just days before Christmas, 2 children have found their forever family. A big moment celebrated during today's Christmas adoption ceremony. Tonight, ABC 27's Haja Bah shares one family's journey with us.
Also, most of all, grateful to have the children and adopted parents here today because this is your day. This is a special day.
An empty courthouse held a special occasion. Chastity Francis and Ron Francis officially adopted 2 incredible children. The journey to this wasn't an easy one for the Francis family. The pair have been foster care parents since 2020, so they've been used to children in and out of their homes. That's why today's ceremony was so special.
I think this is the best Christmas gift anybody could get.
TJ, who was 8 years old, who has been in foster care for over 3 years, and Cassidy, who is 2, have been in foster care since she was a newborn. In the state of Florida, in order for a child to be adopted, the child's biological parents' rights need to be terminated, which can take up to many years. His family had many setbacks before adopting TJ and Cassidy. Cassidy has been dealing with a lot of medical issues throughout the process.
Sometimes you just don't know when you stop breathing.
Francis family now turning a new page, legally welcoming 2 children into their home. Mr. and Mrs. Francis both stressed that children coming from foster homes come with a lot of past trauma and dealing with mental health. They say that they are prepared to give that support as new parents.
We both grew up in really loving homes, so we wanted to provide that for someone in our community.
Latrice Marshall is the caseworker handling Cassidy's case since day one. She says the Francis family is providing a permanent home for Cassidy is a very good feeling because when she first met the family, she knew that Cassidy was very comfortable around the family.
I'm just so happy that they finally got to this place because it's been a very long road.
In Tallahassee, Haja Bah, ABC 27.
So I shared that as a story that was a pitch that became a news story. I will say I am definitely a critique of our work, and I wish we had pictures of the children and more visuals to go with the story. But from the standpoint of what we're looking for, when you watch that, why, and you can unmute yourself, why do you think when I saw that, this story jumped out at me? When you saw the story, what jumped out at you as just a viewer at home? Anyone can speak.
Well, it was a story of hope, and we can all relate to children needing families. So to see 2 children get a family from loving people is a story that is full of hope, and it makes you feel good.
Absolutely. What else? Anybody? What did you take away from that when you're like, oh, I understand why a news organization would put that on television?
I think it also shares a universal need for adoption, right? And kids needing homes. So not only did it pull on the heartstrings but it was really impactful for the foster care environment to encourage people to be a part of this process.
Absolutely. Again, there's a lot, right, to unpack. It's not just these children need foster care. There are a lot of children that need foster care. And there's also a process, right? Parents' rights have to be terminated. That can take time. Oh yeah, when I'm a foster parent, I'm not just taking care of a child that's perfectly healthy or perfectly happy. Like there are challenges. Like they said, the toddler had been dealing with medical issues. So when you see a story like that, I hope, and the reason why I jumped on doing it, it provides hope. It raises awareness about a foster care, right? It's just emotion. Emotion is really important. We always tell our reporters, and it doesn't happen every day. I would love for it to happen every day, is that you need emotion. You need that person. Like, I don't want to just hear from the judge. Like, we heard from the judge, and the judge did have good sound, right? Talking about what a good Christmas it was going to be. And this is a great, opportunity to have the judge. I don't want to just hear from the judge. I don't want to just hear from the caseworker. We heard from the father, emotional in the chair. We did the interview with them one-on-one. So that is why this jumped out at me. If you're an organization that you're like, we do stuff like that, right? If you're sitting here and you're watching that and you're like, man, I know we have stories like that to tell. How are you pitching the story? How are you selling the story? Really important, because as the whole write-up for this workshop said, I truly believe there are amazing things that are happening and we just don't know about all of them. Or maybe sometimes they are just not being presented in a way that we realize that they are these big, emotional, impactful stories that they are.
The biggest takeaway.
So social media, lots of power in social media. If you are in an organization where you don't have a social media page, I would like to believe that most of you do. You definitely need one. In addition to sending news releases, most people are then coming up with some form of a social media post to draw people's attention to stuff. Well, for us, we realize that some of our organizations, and Leon County Schools will be the example I'm going to use, are not necessarily always sending out a news release, because everything doesn't have to be a perfectly crafted news release. Sometimes you're just doing really cool stuff in the moment and you want to share it with people, and you're not even thinking that that could be a news story. Or sometimes you have really great things happening and you're not, again, in a place where you have news coverage. Okay, put it on your social media page, highlight it on social media. So Leon County Schools, they have their weapons dog, and we had kind of been following it, and we obviously follow their page. And I'm going to show you how a Facebook post turned into just a really little quick story for us. But it got some news attention because we thought it was interesting, but the interest generated from a Facebook post.
And to help increase safety in schools, there's a new weapon detecting dog that will soon be on campuses. Stassi is a passive alerting Labrador retriever. There she is, meaning that she'll lay down if she detects a firearm or bullets. This is part of Leon County Schools' new security initiatives to help keep guns off of campus. Secondary students can expect to see Stassi for random screenings on campus in the next 2 weeks.
That was really quick, y'all. That was 20 seconds. And sometimes that's more than enough. That's good. The reason why it was important for us to do this update, I strongly believe in, if we raise awareness about an issue, we should continue to follow the issue, and we should make sure that people see the progression. So there were a lot of stories that we had to do because there were issues with guns in school and issues. And Leon County Schools came out and said, hey, we're doing things. And this is one of the things they did. And I think it's really important that you highlight the changes and how people are changing things, or how people are improving situations. So again, though, this all started with a Facebook post. I see Facebook posts a lot of the times where I will send them to the newsroom. And again, even if we don't go and interview somebody, I will say, hey, let's get this up. Or, hey, I think this is great for our newscast. We ask for permission for pictures and video that we pull from people's platforms because we don't own them. I'll say, hey, reach out to such and such and see if we can use that. We do have some relationships with people who have told us just straight up, because it does kind of cut down on reaching out for permission. If you see something on my page, you like it, take it, give us credit, do whatever you want to do with it. But there's just so much power in social media. So if you're an organization that isn't super active on social media, get active. That's really important because again, you're not just raising awareness to the Facebook community, but people like me or other news outlets would see those things and be really interested potentially in giving those things some coverage.
And
all right, I've told you all the things to do. And hopefully you're like, yeah, I can do that. Or maybe you're already doing that. Maybe you want to make some tweaks to it. There's some things not to do that come up and have come up in every single market I've ever worked in. So I just want to put this on your radar. Not that these things will absolutely keep your story from being told, but I just find that these are some things that if you avoid will probably make your media relationship a little bit better. And maybe too won't make your story the story that we're like, no. Cold calling organizations. You can call an organization and like I said before, ask who is the best person to send information to, ask what the best email address is. I wouldn't call a cold call organization and the first person that picks up, you just start telling them what your story is. I'm going to tell you now, we work in the newsroom, all kinds of different people pick up the phones. Amazing, great journalists, people, producers, photographers. These people are typically not making the decisions about whether or not we're going to cover a story. These people may be in a hurry and not taking the best notes. So you don't want to cold call an organization and then just start going through your story idea with the first person who answers the phone. We have that happen from time to time. And I get it because if you don't know, you don't know. That's probably not the best way to get your story out there. If you send an email, it's okay to follow up, but don't be aggressive. I had one organization call us 3 times yesterday. Like it had gotten to the point where maybe 4 times I have caller ID. So I'm like, I didn't know who the organization was at first. So after like the second or third time I asked somebody, I'm like, why does this person keep calling? And they had been talking to people and they were like, oh, they were explaining. They wanted us to really commit to covering something on the phone right then. And I don't know if we weren't very clear or we told them to call back, but whatever the case is, you know, it's fine to send a follow-up email. Hey, want to make sure you got this because what did I tell you? News organizations get a lot of emails. So sometimes things may get lost. If it's your first time reaching out to that organization, maybe it didn't go to the right people. It's okay. Hey, did you get this? But you don't want to keep calling, right? You also don't want to keep sending the same information over and over again. But I will say there is something in sending something today, knowing the event is on the 15th, and maybe sending a reminder the week of the 15th of May, because it isn't like, hey, I'm going to keep sending you this until you agree to do it. It's, hey, I've established we have this thing going on. Hey, a reminder, want to make sure this is on your radar. I think that's fine. I think that's lovely, but just don't keep sending the same news releases over and over every day, a couple of times a week. More than likely we saw it. If we didn't see it, we probably saw it the first 2 times you sent it, maybe the third, but like constantly sending in every day, it's just not probably beneficial for you either. And then the last thing is, the reason why I told you figure out who the people are you should be reaching out to is because you don't want to send multiple people the same information. If you know that, like I know some of y'all on here personally. If you know you have a relationship with me and you have a relationship with one of my reporters and you want to make sure that I know that you are sending said reporter this story as an idea, that is absolutely fine. CC me on it, you know, whatever the case is, that's great. But if you have a relationship with one reporter and then you know 2 other reporters at the station, probably don't want to give all 3 reporters the same story. Figure out who your person is, and more than likely, especially if you have direct contact with a reporter, they can let you know whether or not it's something that they can cover or if they need to hand it off to somebody else. Every organization is different. These are things, again, that I've kind of seen come up in newsrooms that are kind of like not the best things to do. You can still do them if you want to. I'm not telling you, oh my God, don't. But if you're looking at how to have better communication, better relationships, I do find that some of these things are things, if avoided, could potentially improve that for you. Also, when you're sending the same information over and over, you're using your own time to do that. So I know many of you have a lot on your plate. So what is the best way to use your time and maybe not sending the same email every day? Key takeaways. So we are coming to the end. If you don't take anything else away from anything that I said, here are the things that I hope that you take away and I hope that you apply. Identify who you want to tell your story and look for ways to connect to them. If you know that my station or the paper or whoever is the organization you want to tell your story, awesome. Figure out the best way to connect with us. Once you pitch your story, be prepared for requests. You have a fantastic story. I read it. I think it's awesome. I'm probably going to have a reporter calling you once I get the news release. If you know you're not in a position where you can do interviews instantly, maybe delay it a little until you're in the position where you have your media stuff worked out. If you are in a position where you have someone available for a story, but maybe it's not that day, it's okay to include that information. Tiffany will be available on April 28th at these times. Please reach out now to set up interviews. Lovely, more than fine. Again, I just covered it. Use social media as a tool to get your message out. You know, again, the news is a platform. We have big platforms, but you guys all have the ability to share your messages on social media. So if you're not doing it, you should really look at doing it. If you can have an intern and you don't have a Facebook page or you don't keep up your Facebook page, well, maybe that is something for the intern to do. But really look at how you can maintain your social media accounts. And the most important thing is just be patient. A lot of things happen. We work in news. We work in news in Florida. So we'll just say a lot of things are constantly happening. And what seems like it's super urgent to you, unless it's something that is actually happening right that moment and it's breaking news, may not have the same level of urgency for us because we're putting out other fires or we have to cover other news stories. Please do not feel like you're being ignored. Please know that sometimes it takes time. Please know that sometimes it could be a week because sometimes we do get stories that aren't time sensitive and they're just like, hey, I have this great story I want to get out there. Awesome. I might not be able to set you up for a story this week. We might not respond to your email this week, but be patient. We are trying. I like to believe that all of our outlets in this market are trying to tell the best stories every single day. And sometimes we can't get to everything, but we definitely try our best. And then the last thing is, here's my contact information. You can email me. I might not be the person who immediately responds to the email. If you're emailing me a story, I might just send it on to someone in the newsroom. You can also follow me on Twitter. I'm very active on LinkedIn, and obviously it's just my name, Vicki Bradley at WTXL. But I like to hear from you. If you have questions that you might not want to ask on this platform with the group, shoot me an email. I would love to respond. If you want me to go back over something with you, if you want me to clarify something that maybe you don't feel like this is the space for that, please reach out via email. I'm more than happy to try to connect and hopefully get you some answers. And thank you all so much for your time. And I hope that you got something out of all of this. And Justin, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Well, we're so happy again to have you present for our membership. We thank you for the wealth of information and knowledge you shared with us on this morning. I know I took away a lot of things from it, and definitely we'll be in contact with you soon as we have some events coming up very shortly within the next couple of weeks to months throughout our calendar as well. If there's any questions from our audience members, let's take some now. Definitely feel free to unmute yourselves or put the question in the chat so we can read it out loud so everyone can hear it. But please feel free to ask any questions if you have any at this time. Okay, I'm seeing none. Oh, go ahead. I'm so sorry.
Yes, thank you so much for this valuable information. I have a question. When your work is highly sensitive in this political landscape, any tips, tricks, or traps to navigating media inquiries or just even navigating and dealing with the media when you know that your work is pushing hot buttons?
Know who you're trying to reach. If it's highly political, who are the organizations that maybe are like down, right? Who are like, these are the kinds of stories that we like to tell. I do think if you're just trying to reach a wide audience too, like always figure out how to sell the impact of it. What I like here, and I would just tell you all, my station, I don't have a dedicated political reporter who works just for me. My company has 5 stations in Florida. We have a reporter based in Tallahassee. He covers 85% of the political things that happen in the state for us. And that is such amazing for us. So it just kind of depends on, like, is there a dedicated person that covers those hot button issues? Is there a dedicated person who kind of takes that stuff on? And it can be difficult. I would say, reach out to me and maybe give me some examples or send me what you're thinking, and maybe we can talk offline and I can kind of better look at it and figure out kind of if there is a better way to navigate, or if there is a certain organization over another that maybe you should be sending that stuff to, because yeah, times are tough. We've had organizations that do really great work not want to do media stuff because they were afraid in this political climate of certain things working against them or happening to them. So I totally understand. If you want to send me an email offline, maybe we can talk through it or look through it.
Will do. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have any more questions from our great audience here today? Okay, seeing none, I do have a few announcements that I want to share with you all before we are out of here. And I'm going to share my screen really quickly to do so. Come back, let me see. You're not seeing, are you seeing this? The 21 days, yes? Perfect. All right, so we are 21 days away from our 2023 Conference for Excellence in Nonprofit Management and Leadership. This will be held on May 16th, 2023 at the FSU Turnbull Center. And immediately following that, in the evening time, we will have the 2023 Conference of the Leadership Tallahassee Building Better Boards presented by Big Ben Cares. So please feel free to register for the Leadership Tallahassee Building Better Boards Conference. The slots are still available because as of yesterday morning, we are officially sold out. We have hit 300 registrants this year. This is a conference high for this year, and we are excited to host you all. This is a huge, huge achievement from the team here at UPHS, but we could not have done it all without you all. So we just want to thank you all for supporting us throughout the years. As members, we are happy and more than excited to host you all this upcoming May 16th, and we cannot wait until then. My last announcement is, if you happen to miss last week's on Thursday, the Smart Dreams Turning Trauma into Resilience training, or if any of your colleagues missed today's training, the Telling Your Story training, both of these workshops will be available today on our YouTube channel. So please be on the lookout on our Facebook page, as we'll be posting the links there. If you know anybody that will be looking for the links and needs to reach out to me directly, please feel free to have them email me at any point, and we can send those links directly to them. My last announcement, I said this is my last one. This is truly my last one. I do see some special names with us today who I have not seen before. So if you are interested in becoming a United Partners for Human Services member to get more resources like this and more, please feel free to email me or reach out to me at any time. We are at all times taking members, and we're just here to support you all within the sector as much as we can to make sure that we are helping your organizations in any way possible. So if you are interested in joining United Partners for Human Services, please feel free to send me an email and join us. If we have no more questions being seen, on behalf of our Executive Director, Amber Tynan, and the team here, I just want to say have a great rest of your day and week, and thank you all for coming out today.